CSS backgrounds, and it's basically setting backgrounds for various elements which appear on our page. All right. So let me just hide this over here. Let me hide this, and then I have my. Let me close the typography. But I have my Visual Studio Code open, and I have my HTML file, which is background.html. It has a title of CSS, and then let me link it to my style. So link, then background, sorry, background.css, so that whatever styles we are applying over here, it's going to affect our elements, right? Then inside my CSS, I am importing the Poppins font, and then I am also declaring the font, because when you import the font, you have to what, declare it on an element, so that any that element and its offsprings or descendants would also inherit that font. So what I'm going to do right now is let me come here and create div, then give it a class of box, right? Yeah, great. Then let me see. Back in my CSS, I'm gonna select that class, right? And then give it a width of 150 pixels. Save, and we're not seeing anything yet. And give it a height of 150 as well. Give it a height of 150 as well. And then still we can't see anything. Then we are now coming to set for the background, right? And the basic way of setting the background, first of all, let's look at what the background color. All right, so with the background color, what we can actually do is it's pretty straightforward. We give a background color, then we can say blue. And then when we save, you realize that the blue is applied to our element, right? And basically, you can apply a background to almost any element in CSS, right? We can also select our HTML, which is what we have over here. We can select our body and then give it what? Background. You cannot go and select the head and give it a background, because from the very beginning we mentioned that whatever goes into the head is what the metadata, or it contains information about the web page. It doesn't actually display on the web page, all right? So you realize that we have our title here, and the title is showing over here. So CSS backgrounds is not showing on our web page, it's showing on the title bar, right? So when you go back here and you say head, then you say background color red, nothing is happening because it's not showing on the page. So you can get away with that. What you can actually do is also say HTML, right, and give it a background color of red, and it's going to cover the whole page, all right? We can also call a background color of, let's say, aqua on our body, and you realize that the body has a height, a default height of auto, right? So let me comment out my inbox, and you realize that the body is not showing, and it's not showing because it's auto. And if it's going to take, it's going to expand to take the space that each children are going to have, right? So it's auto by default. And if I now give, let's say this box, let me comment this, let me comment out the weight, right? And then let me comment out this as well. Great. So now I have given what, the box a height of what, 150. I haven't given it a background yet, all right? But then the body, remember the body has the aqua color. So the body now takes up the height of each child. So it expands to cover each children. That's how most elements are in what, in what do you call it, in CSS, all right? For example, what I can actually do again is what, come here and give this what another div and call it a child, give it a class of what child, right? Then I can now let me remove the height over here, give this a background color of blue, and it's still not showing because it doesn't have a height, right? Then I can come to child, then I can give it a height of let's say 20 pixels, all right? And you realize that the parent is now, let me make it 200, right? So you realize that now the parent, which is blue, is now covering the space given by what? By the child. So let me give the child a width of and you know that the body, or let's say the div by default it's a block level element, so it has a width of what 100%. It's gonna take up the width of its parent, right? And so let me now override that, give it a width of 20 pixels, all right, so that we can see the effect. And we are not seeing it here because we haven't given it a background. So let me give it a background color, and let me give it a violet blue. Let me make this 100. All right, so now 200 should be okay. All right, so now you realize that the child element is here, right? And it's now the child element that is controlling the height of the parent element. This is not about backgrounds, but I just want to explain this for you. The child element is controlling the height of the parent element, which is blue. Should I change this and make it 100? You realize that the parent element now fits. Are you getting it? And the same thing is what it's happening to the body. The body is now also adjusting to the height of what this box, which this box is also taken from what from the child. All right, and basically that's what I just wanted to explain. And so back, let me just take the child out, and I hope I haven't confused anybody. If I have confused you, kindly draw my attention. So we are having our box, right? A width of 150, a height of 150, giving it a square, and then the body is panning in height to um, fit the child element. And the more elements we begin to fit inside the body, so suppose we have a P and this, and you realize that the body will expand to make sure what it contains all the children. Now enough of what I didn't plan for today, and we are talking about what backgrounds, right? So basically, I can even bring a paragraph over here, right? And let me have my dummy data. Then I can select my paragraph and then give it what a background color of yellow, and it's happening over there, right? So basically, you can give a background color to almost every element in with CSS by just using the background color attribute. And it's as simple as that. Another thing which we can do is give it what a background image. Today we are focusing on what on backgrounds, right? And I think we did an overview of that when we were looking at when we were doing a random project. I think last week. Today we are going to be looking at it in what in detail, right? And so let me go back to my C. Let me just bring my CSS reset over here. All right, and let me give it a padding of 0, and then a margin of 0 as well. Then I'm going to give it a box sizing of border box, and we have everything fitting right now. So let me take off my paragraph because we don't need it for now, and then let me take off everything I have applied over here, not the box, right? And what I can, let me just take this off as well. Now let me give it a width, let me remove the width over there so that it goes to the default 100%. And then the height, I'm going to make it 500 pixels, which it's looking good for now. Now let me bring this over here, all right? And I'm going to leave the background color over there. But another thing we can do is what set a background image, because we want to give what an image to the background, and it's going to take a CSS function called what a URL. Remember, we use the URL to import resources into our file. When you bring the URL, then you specify the location of the item, right? So here, I'm going to bring my column, my double quotes, right? Then I'm now going to specify the location for my image. So let me open the file tree over here, and I have a folder called what? Images, and then inside that images folder, I have a lot. I have a few images, not they are not a lot, they are a few. So I have a few images over there, and I'm gonna work with one of them, which is what the pattern, right? So first of all, remember that my file, my CSS file, is now in my root directory, right? But my image is not in the same folder. My image is in another folder. So first of all, what I have to do is what? Specify the folder, which is what? Images. Then I bring a forward slash. Then I want to go with what? Pattern.png, all right? And we have it covering everywhere like this. Um, Let me reduce the file of the size, sorry, the size of the file, because there is an effect I want us to achieve. Back to desktop and web development tutorial, CSS, images, pattern, edit. First of all, let me make a duplicate so I don't destroy it like I did the other time, right? So resize this and let me take it to 20%. 10% should be okay. Let me make this half of that again. Great. So I think this is okay. And I believe you guys can see, right? Let me take off the background color so that we can see the effect very well, right? So you realize that we have the background pattern over here, and we actually, what is happening over here is what? It's repeating. Are you getting it? And because of the pattern, I think you guys can see that it's repeating. So let me try and see if I can use a different image so that it becomes clear enough for us. Let me see if I can use the check mark rather. Great. And I think this is a lot more obvious that it's repeating. So we have several of them repeating vertically as well as horizontally. And so in an instance where you wouldn't want your background image to repeat, then there is another property which you can clear on your element, which is what? Background repeats, right? And background repeats by default, it has a value of what? Repeat. Are you getting it? And when it has a value of repeat, it means it's going to repeat horizontally and vertically. All right. So if you don't want it to repeat, you bring what? No repeat, and you're gonna have only one of our background image showing, right? And because it's very small, we are having it like this. Suppose we change this to the pattern, which is a little bigger, right? So now we have our pattern showing here, which is what? Only one, right? And then another property, another value we can give to the no repeat, the background repeat is what? Repeat X. And when you say repeat X, it's going to repeat along the horizontal axis or the X axis. I believe I'm getting that right. Yes, I think this is the X axis and this is the Y axis. So repeat X is going to repeat it along the X axis. Then when you say repeat Y, it's going to repeat along what the Y axis. And you realize this is not getting to the bottom because we have given what we have defined a height for our box. Let me give it a border of 2px solid green. Right, so this is the demarcation we have given to our box element. And so the background is going to repeat till it covers that particular part, all right? And so we have what? Repeat, no repeat, repeat X, and repeat Y. Are you getting it? And in an instance where you have big or small, right? You have, let's say we have this nice image, right? Using this nice image as the background, you wouldn't want it to repeat, right? Suppose we take this out, look at what's happening, it's repeating. And because it's big, we only have one, two, three, four, and what's shown here is very small, right? So In an instance like this, you wouldn't want the repeat, right? So you what you do is you bring what the no repeat. Oh, I cleared everything. You bring the no repeat, and this is what is going to happen, right? But then there is another problem over here, which is we want our background to cover the whole space, all right? So we can now declare another property, which is what? The background size. The background size, and it's set to auto, I believe, by default. Now it can have another size, another value as what? Contain, right? And contain means it's going to stretch where the moment it touches the sides of the what do you call it? It touches the sides of each parent, it's going to stop. Are you getting it? So it touches here, and it's okay, right? And when we change our viewport weight, over now it looks okay over here, right? Because it's touching, I think it's touching at least three. That's what usually happens. Now it's changed over like this, and so on. If we leave this like this on contain, and somebody is viewing our web page on a mobile phone, it's gonna look great for them. They're not gonna have any problems. All right. But then another thing that can happen is when we are on desktop, then we're going to be having problems like this. So there is another property, which is what the cover, right? And what the cover does is it stretches the image proportionally to fill the given space. All right. So what we usually want or what we usually look out for when we are given background images is what? It's the cover property. So it's going to cover the whole space and it's going to adjust in size to fit the place, the space, the allocated space, right? So that is what the background size does. And another value, you can also give it what? A unit, right? You can say 50 pixels, let's say that. And our background is going to squeeze in width to what? To 50 pixels, right? Let me make it 500. And we have it like that. And you wouldn't want to always calculate the size of the element, right, to make it look good, right? So we just leave it on cover, which is the best in this scenario and probably any other scenario for setting the background size, unless there are specific results you want to achieve when building your website, right? But in most cases, you go with the background size of cover, and we have our background showing very nicely for us, right? Then another thing which we can also do, you realize that we have a very nice image. Okay, let me just open the image. This is a very nice image we are seeing over here. But then after we have given it a background size of stretch, after we've given it a background size of stretch, sorry, I was saying straight, it stretches, but that was in the value, background size of cover. I'm very sorry for that mistake. We've given a background size of cover and the image stretches. We can see it's now starting from the top left, all right? So we can see the top left part of our image, all right? But the rest of the section that goes beyond the allocated space, it's not showing, which is very bad. So suppose we want to see a particular part of our background image, we can now use another property, which is called the background position, all right? And background position, we can give it a value of center, and you realize that it's going to position it what? Vertically to the center and horizontally to the center. Look at our image here. Let's say this is the center, this is the center. You realize that we are seeing this region, all right, on our web page, all right? And so that is what it does. Another thing which you can do is give it a background position of top, all right, and then we can say left. And when we give it a top left, I think that's the default. All right, let me just do this or not this. Inspect. Nah, let me have this here. This time, let me bring my code here. Now, let me keep my code here and change this, right? So we can still see our desired result. Great, a little bit, right? So we can give it what a background position of top left, and it's going to be positioned vertically to the top, horizontally to the left, all right? Then we can say top right, and for now, I think it's taking the whole size. Let me do this. Great. I think we can now see the effects in when our screen is like this. Now let me change it to top left, and you realize that. Let me bring this. This is the top part of our image. This is the left part of our image, right? This section. So we are seeing the top left, right? It's gonna start from that place. Then the rest is gonna get cut off, right? Now we can change it to top right, and now we are going to see what the right side of our image instead. So you can use the background position to control which part of your image shows in an instance like this. All right, you can say center right, and for now we are not seeing anything because we are not seeing anything. Then you can say center left, and then we are seeing this result as well, right? So depending on the size or the viewport size, the size of the element which you are giving the background for, you can play around with the values, and then you use what is a lot more suitable for you. Um, I believe nobody's confused so far, right? If no response, it means nobody's confused. Then another thing, another property which we can have now. Let me bring this onto our body, right? Then let me give it a background. Let me bring everything, right? Let me bring everything, and the result. This is actually happening. Let me give a mean width of 100 view height, so it should be a minimum height. Great, and let me bring this here. Take care of this. All right. Then let me. And this is my box. Then I can bring a heading. This is a heading. Then I can say, all right, and let me give my body a padding. Let me give this a padding of 100 pixels, which I believe it's looking right. Then my let me give a color of white, and all my other elements are inheriting it. All right, so for now I can scroll. Let me have a bunch of this. Great. And you realize that as we scroll along, our background what scrolls. Are you getting it? The background scrolls with the text, right? And another cool effect we can add is the background attachment, all right? And I can just come here and say background attachment, and I can give it a I think it's on scroll by default, right? What we can do is give it what fixed, and look at what's happening. We can scroll the content past it, and our background is not going to scroll. It's going to stay intact, right? Let's suppose, let me pick out everything again, right? And let me apply this to, yeah, let me apply to this element. All right, then let me bring, uh, great. And see, look at what's happening over here, right? And let me not, then I can have another div, right? Dot another, right? Then let me just start that one. I just want to create a some effect for you guys to see with height of 50. Let me say 100 view height, and then a background of at least blue. Uh, let me save it, and that is happening from here. And I have given this a minimum height. Let me take off the height issue. All right, I've given a height over here. Great. So you realize that while we have content on now, we should be careful over here. We are no more applying this background to the body. We are applying it to what the div. All right, getting it, and the div is actually covering the whole page. All right. And so what we are doing over here, we've set the background attachment to what, to fixed. Now let me just remove it from fixed, and you realize that it scrolls along, and then the second element comes. Let me make this deeper background, right? So we can see the effect over here. So by default, it's on scroll and goes this way, and it goes right. Now, when we have the background attachment of fixed, the background is going to stay intact. And then the next section will just come and cover it, and everything works that way. You probably have seen an effect as such on a website. This is usually how it goes, and we'll build projects with it. We'll try to replicate it as we build projects so that you can see the use cases for the various properties we're looking at CSS. All right, and then with all this that we have looked at under the background, all right, under the background image, there is actually a shorthand for it. I get it. Let me bring this here, and this is not our focus for now. Right. So we have our background color of blue, and the blue is not showing because the background image is now what? It's now taking care of it. Suppose we remove the background size of cover. Now we have our background showing here just small, and everything else just works over it, right? But because we have given it a value of cover, now you see what's up. And I think this is going to help us understand the background position a lot better, right? So when I say center, you realize that the background image is positioned to the center, right? Then I can say uh, top, sorry, top right, and now it moves over there, right? So since we have it small, we are seeing the effect a lot better. Then we can say bottom right, and it's going to show like that, or bottom left, all right? Or you can say bottom center, and we're gonna have it over here, all right? So that's few tricks you can do. And let me bring this back, and we have this here. All right, so what I was saying is that with all this that we're looking at, there's actually a shortcut property or a shorthand property for it. And it may be quite confusing because you have to what, write everything in order. Are you getting it? So first of all, we have our background color, which is where it's supposed to be. We have background image, which is where it's supposed to be. Then we are supposed to have what? Our background position, right? Then we have our background size, which is supposed to be cover. Then background repeat, background what attachment. There are a lot of background properties which you can look at, but we are not going to look at them, all right? Because we look at the very basic ones. We can learn everything. Some of them are advanced properties. You can't learn everything at a go. We take care of the basic ones, and as you use them and you're very much familiar with them, then you can begin to pick up the advanced ones little by little. So for now, the shorthand property, we just go to background, and I believe some of you have seen me use it. Sometimes I can just go to background, right, and it's gonna work, right? Basically, that's what I usually like doing. But with the background property, the background shorthand, let me comment out everything, and we have our text on a white background over here, right? So now let's try and bring everything. So first of all, we have our background color of what? Blue, right? Then we can now specify our image in the so let me save. Now the blue is happening. Then we can now specify our image. Let me go to images, and let me give it a background of BGB. I'm changing it this time. Then we have a very beautiful ocean with sharks or dolphins. I don't know. We have that nice image over there. Then the add another property which we can the next property which is supposed to follow is what? The background position, and let's say center, right? And it's going to position from the center. Then another thing we can add is what? The background size, and the background position and size, use what? Forward slash. So the size we can say what? Cover. No, and you realize that it's also adjusted to what? To fit. I get it. And this, when we didn't use the cover, it was what? It was very wide. It's a very big image, so it's now uh, uh, going beyond the area assigned to it. Right? I don't know if you guys can see that. But let me take off the cover, and you realize that it's expanding. But the moment I bring the cover, it fits into the designated area. Then from there, I can just say what? No repeats. All right. And then because it's a very big image, it's not repeating. Should we be using a smaller image? Let me remove the no repeat property. Okay, the cover is taking care of it. All right. So I can actually say no repeats, and that's what's going to happen. Or I can say repeat X. Can say repeat X, and it's going to repeat in that order for us. Right, for now, I just want us to see how we can combine all the properties using the shorthand property. So the position and then the size, let's make it cover. Right, then what we can do is what? The repeat, then we say no repeat. Then we can also add the attachment and say fixed, right? So we realize that with all of this, we can just use the shorthand property for everything. All right, and it's supposed to be in this order. If you happen to mix things up, you wouldn't get the desired result, right? So color, image, position, size, repeat, and then attachment. Color, image, position, size, repeat, and then what? The attachment. And that's all we'll be looking at for the background image. I don't know if anybody is confused so far. Any question, anything which we should touch on before we continue? All right, if nobody is confused so far, we are lucky. All right, so another thing we can look at as well is how do we give a background gradient? I bet you guys were not thinking about that, right? Now let's leave this particular item over there. And now let's work on this, right? And I want someone to guess, how do you think we can go about bringing a background gradient? We've seen a background image, we've seen a background color. How about a background gradient? Fully, do you have an idea? Harrison, do you have an idea? Janet?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, you know. Oh, Harrison speak.
Yeah. So please, I actually don't have any idea about the ingredients.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, Enoch, you had your hand up.
Say I've tried using a background gradients before.
And how did it work for you?
It worked pretty good because
You
um
used background gradients and it worked. Just like
yeah
we had background
lin-
image.
yes, like linear gradients, and you specify the position before you specify the color.
Okay. But I think you are missing something because most people are thinking, most people will be thinking that just as we have a background color and then a background image, right? We have what? Background color over here. Let me comment this. We have what? Background dash color, background dash image. So when you want to give a background gradient, you'll be thinking you'll go what? Background gradient. And even you realize that it's not turning green like all the other elements, right? You realize that the moment you define a property, it becomes green. Then the value becomes red, all right? For properties like this, then if it's a unit, it shows in orange. And it's going to be different based on the theme you are using in your VS Code or if you're using a different code editor, right? But you realize that the background gradient is not work, which means it's not supported. So to set a background gradient, remember we want to set a background gradient on let me comment this out again. We want to set a background gradient on another, that's the second element over here, and we will use the background image property. Did somebody have a hand raised? Foley, all right. Foley says he had no idea. We're looking at it. We use what? The background image property, right? And after you bring the background image property, then you're going to use another function in CSS. We'll be looking at functions on uh, uh, on its own, right? But since we are encountering them, we'll get to use them. What you can do is what? Specify linear gradient, all right? And then it can take, basically it takes what? Two parameters, or let's say arguments, or two values, right? So I can have a red and I can have a yellow. Let's see what happens. Uh, I've removed the height. So let me give it a height of 100 view height. And look at it. We have what? Our nines gradient. Well, this is probably not that nines, but it's still okay. We have what? Our nines gradient. And we can also see what we can also do is realize that by default the gradients runs from what? Top to bottom. Are you getting it? So we can use I think we can bring some statistics over here. Is it statistics? The pie chart or that concept in mathematics where we deal with angles, right? Angles around a circle that's 360 degrees. So you can specify how the background should go, right? So you can say 90 degrees, all right? 90 degrees, comma, then it's going to rotate. I get it. You can give it any value you want. You can give it 270 and it's going to turn how you want it. You can give it 200 or let's say 210 and it's going to come from the corners. However you want your background gradient to go, all right? And then it can take a lot more values. For example, we can add another color like what? Green. And then we're gonna have it show like this, right? So we can, let me just try and bring in our Ghana flag. And if you're not in Ghana, don't think I'm not thinking of you, right? I just have to do this, right? So we have our red, yellow. Let me just remove this, and we have our gradient over here. Then another thing you can do is if you want the yellow to be more, you can just repeat it, right? So you can say yellow again, and you realize that the yellow is going to be what is going to be a lot more. So let me look at a few more properties on the background gradient. Let me look at a few things on the MDN network and let's see um, what we can work around. Another thing we can also look at is the radial gradient, right? We can also look at what background image. Then we have what radial gradient. Then we can specify blue, right? Then we can specify black, and it's going to have what a radial type or in form of a circular, which is going to start from the center towards the edges, all right? So we can let me try to adjust this color to something a lot more suitable. And I believe this is a nice background which we can actually use to style something, whatever we want. Mm, Now on the MDN network, it's giving us a lot of things you can try, right? And you can actually specify multiple linear gradients at a go, right? So we're gonna pick a few of them. We'll test them out. We'll test them out, and then you see this is just one, which I think we look at something similar. Then copy. All right, I can just copy this here. Let me comment this out. Oh, I didn't copy that. It said copy. And let's see what happened to our background. So we have this background over here, and let's look at what they have given. So this was 0.2510, all right, and that's basically more like let's make it 0.510, and let's see what's happening. All right, so it's just like the angles, using it to control where the gradient is starting from and where it is ending. All right. Then we have another example here where they have multiple gradients, and I actually haven't used anything like this in a real life. Let's see what we are just bringing in. And then it has the first linear gradient starting at 217 degrees. 217 degrees, the first color is red, then a soft black, something more of a gray. Then we have the second one, and I think they are using RGBA, right? If you remember when we looked at colors, the A is what the alpha channel which controls the transparency, right? So there is a lot of things which you can actually do. I'm going to include a link to the NPM network. You can see a lot of examples. You can try them out and then apply them to your projects and try to create something cool. All right. The MDN network is a good resource place for learners, and I always visit the MDN when I have to check things because there is a lot of things I'm still learning. All right, everybody's learning. Nobody's done learning, especially in the tech field. You always have something to go and look up on the internet. So the MDN network is there. You guys should check it out. There's a whole lot of things you can check and play around, and maybe you can discover your own styles, and then you get to apply them. All right. Anybody confused so far? Anybody? If nobody's confused, then believe we can move on. Yeah, somebody's confused. Thank God you're confused. Who was confused? You just dropped your hand. All right, so in Ebenezer, yeah,
Confused.
Eben,
Sir, I'm confused. I'm confused.
where is your confusion?
Sir, the linear gradient that you are doing,
The linear gradient.
Ah,
Is it
yes,
what I
yes.
this
I'm
particular one?
confused. Yes, yes, the background. Yes.
So this is the effect it is having on our page. Are you getting it? And let me just do a few modifications to what they have here, and then see. Let me make this red. Let me use direct colors so that maybe we can see the effect red blue. So we have a red blue from this end. Then 70%. Sorry, 70%. Did it have an impact? Let me take this out. What was your properties? Okay, so let me make this. Let me leave base over there. So we have the red, we have this and that over here. I think it's showing somewhere here. Then we have the green, and then the soft black, which is gonna show over here. Then we have the blue, and then the soft black, which is blending somewhere here. And it's basically all three colors are coming together. All three colors are basically coming together to give this background. And I can't explain what is happening, like what this is doing. But let me just duplicate this one more time, and maybe we'll get to understand. Let me change this to something more of. Let me give it this, and you can't see much of a difference, but that is happening here. So basically, we have four different gradients on one particular element, and they are all coming from different angles. All right, let me give this 45 degrees. All right, so they are all coming what from different angles. All right, so you can actually get resources like this to use them. I'll give you a few resources where you can get background images, and basically the basics for using background gradients. Let's just stick to one for the basics. All right, and it's when you have your background gradients, you first of all specify the direction, the 90 degrees. Then you specify the starting color red. Then you specify the end color orange. And that's how it goes for you, right? Then you can now come and specify another color again, another linear gradient. All right. Then I can give it a 45 degrees. All right. Then I can give it a starting color of blue and a starting color of black, and nothing is happening. Then let me specify another one, and it's a linear gradient of, let me give this 70%. The percentage does that over here, and it's gone totally. I think we are gonna stick with whatever we have. All right. The basics is about, it's about you have your direction, the start and then the end colors, and then you can specify as many colors as you want. I have not actually used a whole lot of gradients together in real life. I have, I barely use. I've done. I don't even have a real life project where I have the linear gradient. I have a lot of gradients, but basically that's how it is. I'll figure out how it actually works and I'll make a video on it. All right. So I think I have something more to learn over here. I don't know if your confusion is still valid, Ebenezer. Eben. All right, we'll continue. And then there is another background stuff which I want us to look at, and One thing we can actually do with the background, right? Now let's go back and focus on this particular property, right? And you realize that our text cannot be read that well, all right? So what we can do, we can now control the transparency over here. And what we can do is after we have our background image, let me take off the shorthand property and let me just bring this right. We have a background image of this which is showing, and then let me give it a background size of cover and no repeat, which is showing like this, right? So we what we can do is we want our text to be what we want to control the transparency. Let's try this first option, background color of blue, and it's not working, right? It's not working over here. As I said earlier, it has to be in order. The background image has to come first, then sorry, the background color has to come first, then the background image. All right. What we can do if we want to control the transparency is to use a pseudo element, right? And we are going to dive into that right away. So I'm going to use a pseudo element called, let's say, the before pseudo element for now. And this is how we use the pseudo element. So far, we've been using pseudo classes. Today, we are using a pseudo element. There is, we're going to have lesson on pseudo elements and pseudo classes specifically. So first of all, I'm going to give this a content and give it an empty, right? Then I'll give it a width of 100%, then a height of 100%, which is going to take the height and width of each parent, which is the box itself. And then we are going to give it a background color of red, and nothing is happening so far. Now let's give this a position. Yesterday we were looking at position, and give it a position of what? Of absolute, right? And you realize that it's now taken out of the normal flow. It's now showing over here, right? And what is happening is that it's looking for a parent element with a position of relative, and nothing is having a position of relative, so it's just hanging around over here. What we can do is come back here and then give this a position of what? Relative, right? And we're still having nothing on it here. It's now taking this, right? Let me show you this. You realize that it's showing over here. Let me first of all give it a top offset of 0, and you realize that it's moved to what? To the very top. Then let me give it a left offset of 0, and it's moved to what? The left. Are you getting it? And it's now taking, because this is not having relative. I did mention that if it can't find any parent element with a relative value, it's going to take that of what? The viewport area. So you realize that it's covering the viewport area in height and in width. So now let me declare relative on the parent, and you realize that the 100% which we have given here is no more the viewport, because it now has found a parent element with a position of relative. So now the height over here has now, let me make this, let me take this off. Let me make it a background color of blue, so we don't get confused. Right, this is here. Before I made this word, I gave this the relative attribute. You realize that this is showing up to just the side. That's the viewport height. But since I've given this relative, it now what? Takes the parent element. This now becomes its focus, right? So the top and then the left is now starting, all right? So should I give this a margin top of, let's say, 50 pixels, you realize that it's moving with it. But if I should remove the relative, you realize this is still going to the top. It doesn't respect that margin top. And so I just thought this will help you to understand the absolute and then the relative positions. All right, let me take the margin top off. And then what we can do is now what control the transparency of this. So we can now turn it to RGBA and reduce the transparency. All right. But before we reduce the transparency, this is what I want to do. You realize that it's still it's covering the text. All right. But that's not what we want to do. So we can come back here where to the pseudo element, and then we can give it a z index of, by default it has a z index of what, 0, all the elements, and so they are going to stack on top of each other depending on the order in which they are stated. But we can give it a negative z index of 1, and now it's hiding under this particular object. All right, it's hiding under this object. It's now we can't see it anymore. So we can now give where is this? We can leave this here. All right. Then one thing we can do is come here, and the text or the content which we want to see, we can come here, which is a paragraph. All right, and give it a z index of 1. Let's see what happens over there. And it's not showing because this has an absolute position. It's taken out of the normal flow. So let's give it a z index of -1 to send it to the bottom. And then we can there is a property which we can actually assign. I'm missing it. There's one property. Let me see if I can get it. Creating new indexing stack. There is a way. There is a property which we can assign to it. Not opacity, not this. There is another way to look at this, and I want to look at that. After applying the z index of -1, there is new stuff in context. Okay, I think the and this should give us the property. Great. It's the isolate property. That's what I was looking for. Thank God I found it in time. So what we can do is come back to the parent element, and then we can say what, isolate, isolation, and then give what, isolate. Right. And then let's come back here, and you realize that our text is now showing on top of the background, right? So now we can now use this to control the opacity or the contrast, so that we can have our image showing, and then we can still have our text showing. So we can now manipulate this particular color, change it to wherever we want, maybe dark, uh, the, adjust the opacity, and then we can have it. And I think our text is it's a lot more easier to read. So you adjust it as when you like it, right? And I believe I haven't confused anybody up to this point. If anybody is confused, kindly draw my attention so that we can take care of it before we move on to other features. So I found the isolate property. That's a good thing. And then the other thing which we can, another thing, yeah, somebody has a hand up. Harrison.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, please kindly go over the isolate again. Did you give it to the parent element?
Yes. After I did all of this to the pseudo element, I get the pseudo element becomes like a child element. I get it. What happens is a pseudo element, instead of creating a div over here and styling it, the pseudo element only exists in what the realm of CSS. So it's not inside our body, but we can apply styles to it, do a whole lot of things to it, and it's going to show on the page as if it's what an HTML element. Are you getting it? So because of this absolute position, anytime you give something an absolute position, it's taken out of what the normal context of the web page. So it's like it's hanging. So I've given it a -1, and now it goes to the very bottom. Are you getting it? And now I have to set the isolate property, isolation, and make it what isolate. Apply that onto the parent. That's what the box over here. I get it. And so what that causes is that this uh, um, pseudo element now comes right on top of this. I get it. And so it doesn't go under this. It starts with what the elements that are children of what this. I get it. So this now has what a new indexing context. Let me take my time to explain. After I've done the isolation of isolate, what happens is that what this z index of one is not going to be what is not going to come under this. I get it. Usually when I have z index of one, it's going to the very bottom of the page, and everything that comes is going to what it's going to cover it, right? But then I'm now going to give this what an isolation property, which is going to give it what a different uh, um, indexing context. I get it. Just like the name applies, we isolate it, so it is lying there different. I get it. So it's like you are not using the same law that is applying to each children. The law that is applying, the indexing law, that is what stacks on top of each other. What stacks on what? That particular law that is applying to each children, that is the div, the pseudo element over here, and then the paragraph. This is not supposed to be here. Let me see if that's not causing a problem on our page. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be here. The law that is being applied to this particular element, the indexing law, is now isolated, right? This is isolated, so this is not coming under this as it's supposed to be in a real sense. This is now treated as what? It's now given a separate isolation, a separate indexing context. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to explain. Do you understand it so far fully? No, it was Harrison, right? Harrison, are you still confused?
Yes, sir.
You're still
I'm
confused.
still confused.
All
Yeah.
right. Let me try and bring out my paint, and let me see if I can use that to give you an explanation. Great. So we have our first layer, which is the parent element, which is the box, right? Then now we brought in what a pseudo element, which and on top of the parent layer we have what a paragraph, which is a child. Now we brought a pseudo element and then given it a position of absolute. Are you getting it? Now the absolute, what happens is that it takes it to the very top. It takes it from the normal flow of the document. And so now we have our pseudo element, which is our background, the red background we are working on, and it's now lying over here. Are you getting it? Then we don't want it to cover the text. Let me take this out. Let me take this out, and let's see what's happening. Let me not let me give it, yeah. This is what we have, all right? Because it's absolute, it's now lying on all of the elements. And so what we don't want to do is we don't want it to cover the text, because that's the reason we brought it. We want to be able to see the text. Are you getting it? We want to be able to see the text. So we give this a z index of -1. All right. We have x-axis, we have y-axis, and then there is a third axis, which is just like we have the y-axis moving in this direction. Let me use this side. We have y-axis moving this direction, all right, and then we have the x-axis in this direction. When you want to have a 3D plane, we have the z-axis as well. I get it. Which, let me say, it's kind of like a top to down. Let me see if a Google search is going to help us understand the z index. Z plane. Let me see if great. I think I've seen the perfect example. All right. So look here. We see that we are having our x plane moving left to right. I get it. Then we have our y plane moving what? Uh, it's supposed to be moving top to bottom. I get it. But then there are three angles over here. We have our x plane. This is our x plane. And this is our y plane. I get it. And now the z plane, it's now moving. Is now top to bottom. I don't know if you understand this image. Harrison, are you understand? Do you understand the
Yeah,
illustration over here?
yeah, yeah.
Great. So the Z, it shows what lies on the other, while the X, it's about um, what's positioned at the other end. Are you getting it? Let me see if I can. Yeah, so who has a hand up? I'm coming. I really want to explain this. If we were having this meeting in person, it would have been a lot more easier to explain the Z index. Yeah, I mean, you can bring your question while I figure out a way to answer this.
Yeah, I think for the Z index, I can say it in a term for us to understand.
All right, then that would be very great. Can you help us? I mean,
Like,
yeah,
yeah, you see the X and Y, like it's just exactly how it is in when we learned quadratic whatever. You see quadratic plotting
yeah,
when they say the X, the that's the horizontal and then the vertical. But
yeah.
when they say the X, the Z index, that one you think about it like the elevation.
Very
Like you
good.
look at it
Elevate.
from like the ground to the sky. So yes, please.
Harrison, do you understand the explanation she gave?
Yeah, yeah,
Great,
perfectly.
great.
Perfectly. Thank
So
you.
when we have a z index, we are only trying to manipulate what goes on top of what. I get it. And by default, they are all zero. So after we gave -1 to this pseudo element, because that's what we did a red. After we give this a -1, it now comes where it moves to where. Let me now remove it. Oh, it moves from where it is and it's now placed over here. Are you getting it? So it's not going to show. It's not going to show. Now we are going to look at what? Our paragraph and then what? The background. Just like what is happening in this instance. Are you getting it? And then you realize that this is here. Are you getting it? And so now we are coming to apply the next property on the background. Are you getting it? And now the background is standing between the pseudo element and then our paragraph. Are you getting it? Our paragraph. But what we want is what? This should be between this. It should be here instead. Are you getting it? So since we want this to be here, what we can do is what? The rule that is applying to this, and this. We want to set a different rule for this. Are you getting it? So we want to isolate it so that the -1 should now not it shouldn't bring this under this. So we are going to act as if it doesn't exist. Are you getting it? We are going to act as if it doesn't exist. Then we can see the red, the background, our pseudo element, and then what? The paragraph. Are you getting it? And I don't know if I bring an opacity of 0 over here, if it's going to bring the result. I doubt. Let's try. Let's try it. And because it's zero, all each child elements are gone as well. So let me. That is not going to work. But what I'm trying to explain over here is that this is here, and this has now become this has now come under it. So we want to use a different rule, or we want to give it a different set of rule. Are you getting it? So that it says the rule says that if you are zero and something is having -1, then the thing should go under you. Are you getting it? But then we want to give it a different rule so that even if somebody is having -1, you are not part of that category. So this element now we have now given what? And we've now isolated it. So the rule, the normal Z indexing rule, is now applying to this and this. Let me change my pen color. It's now applying to what? This and this. And since this is -1, it's going to come under this. Then is going to exist in a different realm, although it's going to be showing, but a different rule for Z index is going to apply to it. Harrison, I don't know if it's a little bit clearer for you now.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yes,
better
sir.
now, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
okay,
yeah. Thank you.
great. So that is what we did over here. So we make it isolate. Then we can have our pseudo element now between our text and the background. Then we can now come back here and then let me give it an opacity of 0.5. All right, and then we can adjust that opacity and then we can read our text. Let me give this a black and see. And this, I think this is pretty much good. Let me take this off. 0.8. And this appears a lot better. Right. Amiyo, I'm very grateful for the explanation. You really helped us over here. I'm very grateful. Then another thing which I wanted us to look at is one advanced property, but let's just look at it. So I'm having the box over here. Then I'm going to have the background blue applied to it. All right. Then let me remove my pseudo elements from here for now. Then isolate property is off. All right. Then one thing we can actually do is we'll give it a background blend mode, and we can give it a property of multiply. And you realize that the background which we have given here, we've given a background color, so it's going to blend the background color into the background image. All right, and I think this is still cool to look at. Let me change this blue. This blue is confusing us. All right, so background blend mode of multiply does this for us, so it can also help to control. Maybe I have a lighter color. Maybe let me use this to can have a lighter color over here, and it's gonna work. Or if I want it to be dark, so that my background can my text can stand out, then we can see it. So that's also another thing to do, depending on your color choices and the results that you're going to get. That's another thing which you can do with the background. Then the next thing we're going to be looking at with backgrounds is how to set a background video. All right, and unlike the background color, the background image, and then the gradients, where they have inbuilt functions or properties for assigning those things. Background video doesn't have a feature. Right? It doesn't exist. I get it. So we have to use a strategy to make sure that what we have a background video. I get it. And what I'm going to do is going to create a div. Let me create a section in this instance and give it a class of hero. And before that, let me just comment out everything that is already in my HTML code. I actually wanted to delete it, but then let me just comment. So we have nothing over here, and then whatever styles we have applied already. I'm gonna clear everything. This here and this. Great. So this is going up as well. So what we can do is come back here and style my hero. All right, and let me give it a background color so that we can see what we are doing for now. A background color of blue. Let me see papaya whip, and it's not showing because it doesn't have a height. So let me give it a height of 100 view height, 100 viewport height. Then the width is 100% because it's a block level element. So we can now see our background showing there for us. Pretty nice. All right. So we want to give this a background video. All right. Back here, let me bring an H1 text and H1 and give it a class of hero text and let me bring something like because I have a video of a beach explore labadi explore labadi, right? And I have something showing like this you'll get to understand what I'm trying to show, right? And I'm glad I'm bringing this again because it will help us to understand our absolute positioning as well. And I think pretty much that's it. Let me just the hero. Did I give it a class? Hero text. All right. So the hero text, and then T is center. I'm giving the text a line of center, and then let me give it a font size of 5 rem, then a font weight of 900. I think that's pretty cool. Then over here, let me give this a display of grid, and then place content. We'll be looking at grid box, so please don't tell me you are confused, so that I can center my item. That's the effect I actually want to achieve. Scroll about it today. Let's see this video. Just looking up for my design. We have this here, and then now we want to add a video. And we haven't looked. I think we looked at how to add images, but we haven't looked at how to add audio and then video. Now we're going to look at how to add video, and adding an audio is similarly the same process. All right. So what we are going to do is we are going to add a video player instead, right? So I'm going to have the video element, and then I'm not going to specify the source here, right? But I'm going to give it some other attributes. Let me not give it the other attributes for now. Here, you realize that it shifted this down because the video is on top of this, right? Then I'm going to specify the source, right? Then src equals, I have a video folder, and inside my video folder, I have a nice MP4 video. I think it's a video of a beach, right? And for now, nothing is happening. So let me uh, bring an attribute called autoplay on the video, all right, so that when the page loads, the video is going to play automatically. Um, you realize that now the video is not playing, but because I brought the controls property, I now have control, so I can now click here to play what? To play the video, right? That is when you want the regular way for adding videos. If you want to add a video, that's how you do it. But then we want to use it as a background image. You don't want the user to click. Are you getting it? So we are going to do something. We're going to take the controls off. Then we'll set it to what? Autoplay, not auto capitalize. We'll set it to autoplay so that as the page loads, the video will begin playing, right? Then another thing we can add is what? We want to make sure that we mute the video so that if the video you're using has a background sound, when the user loads the page, it's not going to the sound is not going to be there because it's going to take away from the feel you want the users to have on the website. You are not playing a video; it's just a background video. Then another thing we want to do is we want to loop it so that when the video ends, it should play again. All right. When the video ends, then the video should play again. So it's going to keep playing like that, right? But then what we actually wanted to do is what? Make this a background text so that this labadi can lie on it, just as we had what our background image and the text is what lying on it. All right. So one thing we can do is we're going to give it a position of absolute. Who has already thought of that? Probably nobody, but that's what we do. And that is going to take it from the normal flow of the page, right? So now let me come back here, and now let me just give this a class of what back. Let me do BG video, and then I select my .bg video, that is the background video. Then I can give it a position of absolute, and you realize that it's now aligned with what, with the viewport area, because each parent is not having a position of what, relative. All right. So it's now within the viewport area. Then I'm going to do another thing. um, Let me give it a now let me give the hero, the parent, a position of relative, and we are not seeing anything because they are all starting from the same place, right? And now we can come back here and let me give it a width of 100%, and it's stretching to actually fit this, right? And let me show you something. After our section, let me have another section and bring an H1 again, and let me say about Labadi. Then I can bring Lauren text. Let me put it inside my paragraph. All right, and this is happening because now what is happening? You know, we have taken this out of the normal flow. Let me just give this let's say index of -1. We have taken it from what, from the normal flow. All right, so we have this over here, and then we have our text over here. Are you getting it? And the video is long enough, and so it was covering the other section, and I brought this because I wanted you to see the video is covering the other section. So what we can actually do is come back here to let me now bring this here. All right, then on our hero we can see overflow of hidden. All right, so when we make overflow of hidden, the part of the video that crosses the area that is set for this parent element, that part is going to be hidden. Are you getting it? That's one thing about the overflow property. So I can now, let me just say, let me select all my sections and give it a padding of 100 pixels to make this look a little nicer. All right, and so we have this over here. Then on my video, I'll give it a z index of -1, and it's hidden as well. All right, there is a property which I wanted us to look at. I worked on this earlier. Let me just make a reference. BG CSS grade. All right, so we have to give it a position of okay, and it's we having the error because I have defined a background color over here. So the background is supposed to be transparent for the hero. So we have the hero, a transparent background, right? So after giving this a z index of -1, it goes down, and then we have our text what showing over there for us. So basically, that's the trick you can use to um, add a background video to a hero section or any container in your HTML page. You have the video and added as a separate element. You give it a back and a position of absolute to take it from the regular flow. You give it a width of 100 so that it fits to the width of the viewport. Then on the parent, you apply an overflow of hidden so that if the video is happens to be longer than the height of the element, then that portion is going to be hidden so that it doesn't cover the other elements. All right. If I don't bring the overview of hidden, you're going to see the effect over here. This is what's happening. So we hide the overflow so that anything that exceeds the parent element is going to get hidden. Then we give this a z-index of -1 so that it goes to the bottom. And then we have to make sure that we are not applying a background color on our hero so that the video can show. Somebody had a hand up. Who was that? All right, so Foley put a comment over there, and I like it. He said web development is about problem solving, and IT or tech, the tech industry is basically about problem solving. All right, but programming specifically is about problem solving, and we haven't started programming yet. We'll be doing some programming from JavaScript. It's about finding problems, solving problems, and while you are solving a societal problem, you encounter problems, and so that's basically how it is. We've now found a way to deal with our problems, and on the background, that's how we go with it. Anybody confused so far? All right, so I think we are done for the background. We looked at background color, background image, background gradient, and then we've also looked at background videos. And let me just add something really cool to this. The hero text. Let me give it a mix blend mode of let me darken it and see that is a difference. And it's not showing. Let's give this a color of white. And, all right, so I think we have some cool effects over there. We have the water showing through our text. This has some advanced features like filters and stuff. I just thought we'll add it. It makes our work look a little bit nicer. So that's it about backgrounds. If nobody's confused so far, I want us to look at one more thing in CSS, which is not concerning backgrounds. We are moving away from backgrounds. If you're confused, if you have any question, can they draw my attention? All right, so next thing we're going to be looking at is CSS variables, all right? So let me copy this. Let me come here and create another HTML file. And variables.html. I think we spend way too much time on backgrounds, but at least it's worth it. Then I can come here and say variables.css, and let me go back to my background CSS, and let me bring in my basic styling with my font imports and delete this for now. Let me have my HTML and CSS variables. All right. And let me draw your attention to something we did back in school. Let x equals something, or let this be equal to x. After solving your math to a level, then you get to see the variable for x, right? So x becomes like a container where it can be equal to any value, all right? And we will deal with variables mainly in from JavaScript, but CSS also has variables, and we'll be looking at them real quick. Then we'll look at instances where variables are very necessary. All right. So I'm going to have a paragraph and a lorem, and then I'm going to have a heading. Sorry, H1. Today I'm turning it. This is below header, and let me see what's showing over here. This is supposed to be variables, and let me push this to the side, and then this to the left as well. Then I'm coming back here, and let me give my body padding of 10 pixels, so it moves away. Let me make it 20, and I believe this is okay, right? And when you want to declare a variable, let me come onto the body and then declare what a variable. And we declare variables in CSS like this, right? So we can say color red, and then I will assign it to value red, or let me say main color, right? I think this will make sense. Main color. So that's the name I am giving it to it, and I'm making it what? Red. Then I would say text color. All right. Then I'll make it a soft black. Then before I do this, let me bring this inside the root element. All right. And this is what's going to happen, right? So when I come onto my paragraph, right, then I say color, then I'm going to bring what? A variable function. Then I'm going to specify a variable which what I have defined over here. All right. So I've now given this what? I've now assigned this color to the variable which is here. So this is going to look for the variable color, and whatever value has been given to it is going to work over here. All right. So you realize that this is now showing what? Red, right? The same way when I want to change this to text color, the soft black is showing, and we wouldn't see much of a difference because basically that is what it is. But then let me bring this property in the body rather, so all our elements can fetch from it. Then let me assign color, and then let me give it some tone of orange. This is supposed to be a flat red, right? Great. So I have my variable set, then I can come over here, right? Then I can say a background color of main, sorry, var. Then I would say color main, right? And then it's going to have a background color of red, that is whatever value we have assigned over here. Then let me give it a padding of 10 pixels, which looks really great over here. Then let me give this a color of white. All right, and I think this is pretty much okay over here. And this is basically how you declare variables, right? You assign the variable to a value, and then when you want to bring that particular property, you just call it. All right, and you wonder why it's ever necessary to do things like this. One, the very first reason is when you have a large code base to deal with, right? Suppose you are creating, imagine you work at Facebook, all right? Sorry, you work at Facebook, you created a whole Facebook platform, you've been managing it, then your boss comes to you one day and says, okay, we are rebranding, we are changing from our red color to blue. or to green. And I believe most of you have seen companies switch their brand colors from time to time. All right. And in an instance like this, what you can actually do is if you use the regular way of defining values, we can say red over here. I get it. This is a little bit different. Let me bring this to 55. All right. We can say red over here. Then when the boss comes and says, okay, we are changing from red, then we just have to come and everywhere we have applied red, we have to look through our code and do what? And then change it to red, which is going to be tedious. Imagine you have 50 style sheets and you don't even know where exactly you've called all these properties, right? Because you can be working on a particular project, and in 2 days time you've even forgotten the strategy you were using. I get it. It does happen. So having to go into your code and look for all of these things and fix them is going to be a lot of problem. I get it. So the variables become very key. And another advantage is even while you're working, you realize that no, this color is not good. You just have to go to one place and switch it. I get it. So let's say I have my main over here, right? My main color over here, which is red, and then I've used it here. Then let's say I've come here and I have another div, right? Div dot box. Then I can come here and say dot box and width 200, height 200, and then BG. Then I'll say, oh sorry, background color. Then I'll say main as well. All right, I haven't saved this. All right, it's now showing. All right, so this is just a simple example. All right, but then imagine we have a lot of these on our page, and our boss comes and says, okay, we are changing from red to what? To green. All we can do is just come back here and change this value from here. I get it. So we can have 0, and then we can have our green. Sorry, the green is the second value, 255. And then we can what? See. And then everywhere we have actually used that particular value, it's going to take effect throughout our code. Are you getting it? Let me open up a particular project. I was working on a project yesterday, and let me just open it up and show you something I did. Open with code. And while I was working on the project, I wasn't certain on the color I wanted to go with. I run an agency which is Pilosoft, and we build websites and then web apps and stuff. And so a new service I am adding to my services is a bulk SMS service where people can log in. And you realize that when you registered for the Okta training, you had a text message confirming your registration, right? And so I want to build a platform so that people can use it. So I started creating it. Then I wasn't certain if I should stick to the blue because I was thinking that okay, I want to change my branding, but then I wasn't sure, right? So I started doing something, right? And let me see if the page has opened. It hasn't opened over here yet, but it's running on port 62492. So let me just type it directly, 62492. And this is the dashboard I was working on, all right? And you can see it has a blue tone, which is nice, but this wasn't the initial color that I chose. Initially, right, this is now opening. Initially, I used this, right? And throughout my code, I've now used what? Blue. You can see the variables over here. So I've now used blue, 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 and a whole lot of them, right? Now, if I should change my mind and say, okay, I don't want to use blue again, I want to go with what? Green, all right? Or let's say I want to go with a black tone, right? I can just come here I don't want to destroy my code, but I can just come here, all right, and then this blue over here, I'm going to maintain the variable name, but what I'm going to do is change this to somewhere green, all right. Then I can come here and change this to green as well. Now they are having different tones, so I'm just changing the hue over here, all right. And I really want to show you a quick example of how using variables can save you a lot of trouble. And then I can have this over here, and then I can have this over here, and then I can have this over here. So you guys can see everything I have over here is what is blue, right? It's using a blue tone. Then I can just save, right? Go back and you realize that everything has changed to what? To green, right? Something is wrong over here. I think let me maintain the slate color because I've used. Oh shit! I need to take this off. Take this off, right? So you realize that even though I didn't go through all my code and change where I have applied the colors, all right? I just came here and changed these colors, and they are going to be applied everywhere I have what I have used them. So I don't need to come back and come and change. Look, okay, I've used blue here, I've used this here, and change it. So you do that once, and it's going to be there. I getting it. Another advantage is I have set another variable over here, which is what a box shadow. I getting it. And so suppose I come into my code and I've applied that box shadow to all these elements, all right? Maybe I decided, okay, I want to change my box shadow. I can just come here, change this particular color to something more of what a red tone, and you can see the edges of my borders are now showing red. I get it. Suppose I increase this to 50 pixels, make this 30 pixels. I'm just doing that so that you can see the effect, and it's going to affect all of them because I've created a variable over here and I've applied to anything I want that effect on. So I don't need to go through my code and change all of them. You see, I've applied it here, here, and then a few other elements. So I don't need to go through my code to do what? To change all of them. I can just make one change and it's going to affect the whole of my website. And so that's one advantage of using variables. I getting it. So let me just go back to my previous project. Make sure everything is okay, right? And I can now close this project. And let me go back here. Let me close this. Great. And I believe you guys get this particular scenario very well. I hope nobody's confused. Okay. Another way. Yes. Who's confused? Enough. Yeah.
Simply, my I lost connection for almost 10 minutes now. So
10 minutes. Oh.
you, yeah, the
Uh,
variable and what you were saying. I wanted to ask if somebody wants to change. Maybe you were saying that if a manager of a company wants to change the whole brand of
yeah.
the company, the colors. I wanted to ask. So as we are programming or we are building maybe a web page for the company, are we supposed to define this variable a couple of times before we finish with we are we supposed to use the variables or we can go with a normal
Well,
background colors?
you can go with the fixed colors, and you're not gonna have a problem. Are you getting it? However, I
Okay,
just gave an explanation, and I think you're going to get it from the video. What happens is that when you happen to change, are you getting it? For
yes
example,
sir.
let me just bring that project back up right now. Projects below SMS, and let me just open it directly. I don't want to connect with a live server. All right. You realize that my system over here has what? It has a blue tone. Are you getting it?
Yes sir.
It has a total blue tone, and then suppose I want to, sorry, not this. I want to change my Bluetooth because honestly, when I was working on this project, I started it yesterday. I wasn't sure if I should go with blue or not, right? So I was using a black. I was using shades of black. So those are the slates over here, and this is how they showed. Let me just show you how the project looked actually. All right. Oh, and save this. Let me refresh. All right. So this is how the project looked from the very beginning. Are you getting it? And let me just leave that for now, right? And it looks good over here. It has that dark blue tone, which is applied to all my buttons and everything. Are you getting it? Suppose I didn't do that, and I want to change the color. I have to go through my code, and everywhere I have given a blue, I have to change it to black. Are you getting it? But because of the
Yes,
variables,
sir.
I can just come and change what the units over here, and it's going to affect them. All right. I don't want to change
Yes.
the colors here one after the other. I just decided to change the blue over here so that you get it. I did it earlier. I took some time to do it earlier. So when you get a video, you'll get it from there. All right. So
Okay.
nobody
Okay.
is gonna penalize you for using direct values. That's what we usually do. I getting it. But when you are going to create a big project, you should have expansion in mind that tomorrow there may be a change. I get it. So you make sure you do what wouldn't be a problem for you tomorrow. Else you have to come back. Most people learn the hard way. Are you getting it? Most people learn the hard way, but I just feel like I draw this to your attention and you get to use them. So this is a typical example where if you ever happen to change the color. So suppose I'm done building this project and I decided, okay, I don't want to go with blue anymore. I want to go with red. Then I just have to come over there, over here, right? And then change these blues to tones of red. Let me just do a few of them for you to see. So I can change this to red. Then I can come and change this to this tone of red and this again, all right? And you're gonna see it in a few places, not all because I've not changed all. So you realize that this is now red and it's not showing everywhere. Let me try and do it so that I think this should give you another result. And this, so you realize my buttons and everything is changed. My link and everything has changed. Are you getting it? So when I come back tomorrow and I want to change my color, it wouldn't be stress. I just have to go to one place, make the change, and it's going to affect everything for me. So that's it's actually when you decide to use the variables, it's going to be to your advantage. Are you getting it? It's not going to create problems for you later. So let me do this. Let me make sure I'm not maintaining the changes right. Then let me close it. And then another advantage of or another reason why we use variables is when we want to work in dark mode. Are you getting it? And I'll show you how to do that real quick. I don't want to use JavaScript. I don't want to touch JavaScript, but maybe I'll touch on JavaScript. We are done with our 2 hours. Guys, should we drop it on variables or should I continue? If you think you're, I want to know in the chat box if you think we should continue. Can you drop it there? If we should bring it to an end, let me know while I explain that on what do we call it, the dark mode, right? So coming back here, I can say this a main color and let me make it a main color. Let me give it this color. All right, and then I can put this off from here. Let me move this box, and I have my light mode over here and my text and everything. All right, so what I can do is I can come to my body. All right, and say when my body has a class of what dark, right? Then I'm going to reassign these values. I get it. So what's supposed to be our background color, I can give a background color of var and main to my body. Then I can remove it on this as well, right? So when my body has a dark color, then I have to switch it, right? I have to make a switch. So I'm going to bring this here, bring this here, then bring this here, right? So I can come into my Java, my HTML, then I can give this a class of what? Dark, and you realize that everything has switched. Are you getting it? So I don't have to come to what? My body, or let's say where I have declared my colors, right? For example, I've given this color to this heading, and then each one, right? I've given this padding of pen, and then a color. Usually it was what, this dark. Are you getting it? But because added a class of dark, it's changing. And when you want to activate dark mode, we use JavaScript to add and remove the class. Are you getting it? So when we remove it, you realize that we are going to have what, our light mode. And when we bring it, we have what, our dark mode. Are you getting it? And so you don't have to be specifying the colors manually, right? Everything has to be there. Then when you switch the mode, you just have to change the values while you maintain the variables, and it can help get your dark mode going for you. Simple as that. We'll be building a project with this dark mode and everything, and so you're gonna see how we will apply them. Nobody has dropped a message. I believe you guys want me to close over here, so that's all we will be covering for today. We are 2 minutes past our time we were supposed to spend, but I believe it was worth it. Any comments from you? Anybody has anything to say? All right, you can speak.
Yeah, sir, please. I think okay. Well, it's fine, please.
No, you can ask your question. Maybe it's gonna help somebody.
No, I was thinking sometimes we get maybe it's too much to ask, but sometimes we get the subtopics of everything we did for the night, like all the um subtopics we treated for the day. Then if we do further reading or something on it, like
Yeah.
I don't know if
So when
we
when
get
you
me.
look at the lesson progress, I think let me end the recording for now.